A 76-year-old woman sat quietly at the front of a Texas bus. Then a man hurled a racist insult at her, trying to force her to move. But when she stayed firm, the entire bus shifted, and something powerful was set in motion. Gloria Mayfield's knees ached. Not just sore, truly tired, that deep bone-heavy tiredness that only comes after decades of climbing stairs, working long days, and never getting enough rest. She clutched her purse close, stepped onto the Route 12 Metro bus in Wichita Falls, Texas, and gave the driver a small, polite nod. It wasn't the kind of nod people usually notice, just the kind you give when you're too polite to complain, even though your whole body is begging for mercy. She had just left the county hospital, where her granddaughter had given birth to a healthy baby boy the night before, the first in the family, named Elijah. Gloria had stayed late, brought soup, tidied up, and kissed that tiny forehead. Her back throbbed, but her heart felt full. So when she settled into one of the front seats, the ones closest to the door, wide enough to stretch her legs a little, it wasn't about making a statement. It was simply about giving her aching joints a bit of rest. The driver closed the doors with a wheeze. Inside, the bus hummed with low chatter and squeaky sneakers. Kids laughed in the back. A man scrolled loudly through sports highlights. A couple whispered in Spanish by the window. Gloria leaned against the cool glass, breathing slowly. Then the next stop came. He climbed on, mid-30s, cap low, hoodie half zipped like it was hiding something. His movements were sharp, not fast, not slow, just angry, like he had stepped on that bus hunting for a problem, already knowing where he'd find it. His eyes locked on Gloria before he even paid his fare. "You deaf or just playing dumb?" he barked, stepping toward her. "Get in the back, Rosa Parks." The words cracked through the air so loudly the bus froze. Even the sports guy lowered his volume. Someone gave a short laugh from the back, but it died quickly. Others turned their heads toward the windows, suddenly more interested in the street outside. Gloria didn't flinch. She just looked up, calm, steady, not passive, strong, like someone who had already survived storms worse than this one. "I'm sitting where I need to sit," she said softly, but every word carried heavy weight. The man scowled. "Don't play games with me, Grandma. You think you're special? You ain't Rosa Parks. That was decades ago. Go sit in the back with the rest." Nobody moved. Not Gloria. Not the driver. Not anyone on that bus. But Gloria's mind wasn't on him anymore. Not really. It drifted back to marches, protest signs, fire hoses on TV, to her brother in Mississippi, to her first job, where she was forced to drink from a different coffee mug. This was never about just a seat. It never had been. She tightened her grip on her purse, but her eyes never left his face. "I paid like everybody else," she said firmly, "and I'm not going anywhere." The silence returned, thicker this time, like the air didn't know which way to turn. Even the bus engine seemed to hum quieter. But this silence wasn't fear. It was a fuse waiting to spark. The man, Derek, shifted uneasily. One foot tapped against the rubber floor, the other planted like a dare. You could see it. He wanted a reaction, a curse word, a scream, someone to flinch, anything that would let him blow up bigger. But all he got was Gloria, sitting calm, like she had nothing but time. "You people always think someone owes you something," he muttered, glancing around as if looking for backup. "Act like you're better than the rest of us. Like history gives you a pass." Still, no one moved. A teenage girl in the back slowly pulled out one earbud. She didn't speak, but her eyes said it clearly. "Is this really happening right now?" Derek jabbed a finger at Gloria, part threat, part warning. "I said move." That's when Gloria truly looked at him. Not through him, not past him, at him. And her stare carried a weight that made Derek step back, just half a step, without even meaning to. It was a kind of weight only someone could carry after surviving a lifetime of insults. "You ever had to look a sheriff in the eye while he held a baton in one hand and your brother's freedom in the other?" she asked slowly. "You ever walked home in the rain because the driver said your stop was a block too far for colored folks?" He didn't answer. He wasn't ready for questions. His eyes flickered like static. "You call me Rosa Parks like it's an insult?" Gloria added, "You think that name shames me?" Someone whispered from behind him. Whoa! Derek's confidence slipped. That swagger he carried onto the bus was unraveling. Still, pride clung tight. Don't try to play victim, he snapped. He raised his voice. Yeah, you people always got some sad story. Derek sneered. A woman behind him shifted in her seat. At first, he didn't notice, but Gloria did. She looked to be in her 60s. White, short silver hair, wearing a tan coat and jeans. She could have been a retired librarian or a grandmother heading to a gardening club, but when she stood, the atmosphere on the bus shifted again. Young man, she said, calm but firm, that's enough. Derek spun around like a switch had flipped. Mind your business, lady. But she didn't flinch. My name is Sylvia Rowan, and this is my business. The bus seemed to inhale as one. Heads turned. Even the driver checked his mirror. I've been riding this same line since 1978, Sylvia said. I've sat beside women like her my whole life, and I'm not going to stand here while some loudmouth brat tries to drag us back 50 years. Derek laughed, but the sound was weak, almost uncertain. What are you, some old liberal? No, Sylvia said evenly. I'm someone who knows what decency looks like, and this isn't it. For a second, Derek's face twisted like he was about to spit another insult. But then, click, from the back, a man in a navy pea coat with short dreadlocks lifted his phone. The bright screen was recording. You're live, he said flatly. Derek froze, not completely, but enough. The idea of being watched shifted something. Turn that thing off me. Nope, Sylvia said, stepping closer, not backing down. You had no problem yelling in front of us. Let the world see it too. Gloria hadn't moved, her purse still in her lap, hands folded, eyes steady. Before Derek could puff himself up again, a sharp voice cut from the back. You got something to say, sweetheart? Derek whirled around, shoulders squared like he'd been challenged. The voice came from a woman, late 20s or early 30s, slim, wearing a Forest Green State College hoodie. Her hair was pulled back tight. Her name, she later said, was Camille Dorsey. I said, Camille repeated, her voice deliberate, you can't talk to her like that. Not on this bus. Not today. Derek scoffed. I'll talk how I want. Yeah. Camille replied coolly. You think being loud makes you right? He glanced around. The passengers still hadn't moved, but they were all watching. Derek had stepped into a space he thought he could control, but the room was slowly shifting against him. Camille stood up, not rushing at him, just standing calm, steady, arms crossed. My grandfather marched in Selma, she said. You don't get to use Rosa Parks as a punchline. Not around me. Sylvia stayed close, now flanking Derek from the other side. The air tightened, closing in, voice by voice. Gloria hadn't spoken since her quiet stand earlier, but the silence surrounding her had changed. It was no longer just still. It was protective, charged, like the whole bus was saying, she doesn't need to fight. We'll fight for her. Derek reached for the oldest excuse. He jabbed a finger toward the recording phones. Y'all don't even know me. This is harassment. She's filming me. He's filming me. I should call the cops. Call them. Sylvia shot back without blinking. Please do, Camille added. Let's make sure they know your name, too. You wanted an audience, right? You've got one now. Derek turned toward the driver's mirror, searching for help. But the man behind the wheel, Ruben Ortiz, wasn't on his side. Mid-50s, lean, a Wichita Falls transit cap pulled low. 11 years driving the same route. He'd seen everything. Fights, crying kid, drunk teens, old folks with oxygen tanks. But this was different. He put the bus in park. Sir, Ruben called out, steady, you need to sit down or step off. I'm not driving with this going on. Derek looked betrayed. She started it, he lied, pointing at Gloria. Ruben shook his head slowly. Nobody started anything but you. I got a camera above your head, a bus full of witnesses, and I've already radioed dispatch. So either get off or wait for security. Something flickered in Derek's eyes. He looked around again, saw the teenage girl in the back still filming, saw Camille standing firm, saw Gloria unmoved. Camille stepped down the aisle, not even walking toward him, just toward the exit. But the way she moved forced Derek to step aside. She paused by Gloria. "You okay, ma'am?" Gloria nodded. "Don't let people like that ruin your day," Camille said gently. Gloria's reply was soft but steady. "Honey, I've had people like that ruin my decades. This is just a pebble." Someone chuckled quietly in the back. Derek froze, torn between pride and defeat. His mouth opened, like he might try one more insult. But nothing came out. The real shift came when the driver made a choice no one could ignore. Ruben Ortiz had driven through storms, late-night emergencies, even helped deliver a baby once when traffic stopped his bus. But nothing tested his patience like people who brought hate on board. He picked up the radio, pressed a button, and said clearly, "Dispatch, this is Bus 12. I've got a passenger refusing to comply, requesting transit police at Midland and Oak Ridge." Everyone on the bus heard it. Ruben hadn't lowered his voice. He wasn't stirring drama. He was drawing a line. Derek blinked, suddenly unsure where to look. "This is ridiculous," he muttered. "I didn't do anything wrong." Ruben didn't answer. Hands on the wheel, eyes forward, the doors shut. The bus stayed still. Traffic honked outside. Sylvia crossed her arms. "You had your say. Now go." Camille sat back down next to Gloria, glancing out the window for approaching officers. The earbud girl whispered to her neighbor. Another man at the back pulled out his phone too. Derek laughed weakly, grasping. "Come on, are we all pretending this is normal now? I just told a joke." "That wasn't a joke," Camille snapped, her eyes sharp. "That was hate, disguised as sarcasm." He waved her off. "She's sitting where she wants, isn't she? Nobody touched her." "You tried to humiliate her," Sylvia shot back. "You thought no one would say anything." Derek opened his mouth to fire back. But then, flashing lights. A white and blue transit SUV pulled up in front of the bus. Ruben stood and opened the doors. Two transit officers stepped inside, one black, one Latino. Both wore gray uniforms with clipboards and body cams blinking red. "Afternoon," said the taller officer. "Which one's a problem?" Every hand pointed at once. Derek threw up his arms. "This is crazy. I didn't touch anybody." Ruben calmly walked down the steps and handed over a printed report he had ready from his dashboard. Verbal aggression, racial provocation, obstruction of transit. It's all written up. The officer turned to Derek. "Sir, you'll need to come with us." "I didn't break any laws." Derek shouted. "No," the officer replied firmly. "But you broke every rule of basic public respect. If you want to argue your case, you can do it outside. Right now, you're holding up the bus." Derek's body tightened. He wasn't used to hearing no, not like this. He scanned the bus, searching for even one sympathetic face. He found none. Even the guy who laughed earlier now refused to look at him. "Fine," Derek snapped. "Y'all are going to be real sorry when this goes viral." The transit officer almost smiled. It already did. Escorted off, Derek stepped onto the street. The doors hissed shut behind him, and the bus seemed to exhale. Not a sound of victory, just relief. Ruben slid back into his seat, adjusted his mirror, and looked at Gloria. "You ready to keep going, ma'am?" Gloria gave him a small nod. "Thank you," she said softly. He nodded back. "No, ma'am, thank you." The engine rumbled. The bus rolled forward. The silence inside wasn't awkward anymore. It was reflective, heavy, restored. Camille leaned back in her seat. Sylvia smoothed her coat. A teenager whispered, "That was crazy," to his friend. Outside, a small crowd had gathered. People watched. Derek stood beside the officers, arms folded, eyes darting toward the tinted bus windows. His jaw was tight. He wasn't yelling now. He looked like a man trying to rewrite the story before it slipped out of his hands. But it already had. On the sidewalk, a young woman named Brianna Kessler had been live-streaming since the bus stopped. She'd just gotten off work at a local bakery, sipping iced tea, when she noticed commotion. At first, she thought it was a stalled bus. Then she heard the shouting. Now, more than 2,000 people were tuned into her feed. "Y'all," she whispered into her phone, tilting the camera toward Derek. "This dude told a 70-something black woman to get in the back, Rosa Parks, on a city bus. In 2025. The chat exploded. Name and shame. "This is why we need more people like Sylvia and Camille." A woman from Alabama typed, "Tell Miss Gloria she's our hero." Inside the bus, the atmosphere was still charged, not with fear anymore, but with reflection. Nobody rushed back to their phones. No one returned to distractions. They just sat upright, watching forward. Camille turned to Gloria. "You want to say something to them? He's still out there, looking like he got caught cheating on a test." Gloria chuckled, almost under her breath. People like him always think they're the victim, when really, it's just a moment they lost a room. That's the only time they feel small. From 2 rows back, a college-age man leaned forward. "Ma'am," he said carefully, "I just wanted to thank you. My grandmother passed 2 years ago. She would have done the same thing." Gloria smiled gently. "Then you keep her memory close, especially on days like this." Sylvia glanced out the window at Derek, still trying to argue with the officers. She shook her head. "He's just not used to accountability. That's all." From the driver's seat, Reuben added, "Too many folks think saying something ugly is just free speech. But it's not. That's hate, dressed up in weak disguise." Another voice chimed in, this time from the middle of the bus. A young white woman, maybe 22, with pink hair and a tablet on her lap. She'd been quiet the entire ride. "My mom teaches middle school," she said. "They just read about the Freedom Riders. Half her class didn't believe people still acted like this. I'm going to tell her about today." Camille turned around. "Tell her we fought back. Tell her we all did." Outside, Derek's voice rose again, but the officers didn't argue. One wrote notes on a clipboard. The other pointed toward the street. "You made your choice. Now take responsibility for it." Finally, the door closed behind him. Derek walked away, still yelling over his shoulder, but no one cared anymore. Brianna zoomed in with her phone, narrating to her viewers. "Remember his face," she said, "but more importantly, remember hers." She turned the camera toward the bus window. Gloria sat in profile, calm, steady, eyes forward. Not triumphant, just present. Stronger than anything hate could throw at her. Inside, the energy shifted again. No clapping, no cheering, just quiet processing. Gloria turned to Camille. "How's your grandfather doing?" Camille smiled faintly. "He passed last year. Parkinson's. But he would have loved this." Gloria reached over, patting her hand. "Then we keep showing up. For him. For the ones after him." Now that Derek was gone, the bus wasn't just quiet. It felt different. It rolled through Midland and Oak Ridge, the city easing back into rhythm outside. Grocery stores, barbershops with worn floors, corner gas stations with flickering signs. Inside, nobody really spoke. They weren't avoiding conversation. They were sitting in the kind of silence that only comes after something powerful leaves its mark. Gloria leaned her head against the window. Her eyes were soft, not sleepy, not worn out, just deep in thought, like she was remembering something bigger than what just happened. Camille stayed by her side, legs crossed, phone resting face down on her lap. Sylvia had moved up a few rows, her handbag sitting neatly on her knees. Nearby, a teenager quietly pulled out a sketch pad and started to draw. Then a small voice broke the stillness. "Were you scared?" Everyone turned. It came from a little boy sitting near the front with his mom. He couldn't have been more than 9, his legs not even reaching the floor. He looked at Gloria with wide, serious eyes, like her answer might shape how he saw the world for the rest of his life. His mother gasped, "Micah, honey, don't." But Gloria raised a hand gently. "No, it's all right," she said, turning toward him. "Scared," she repeated softly. "No, not really. I was angry, mostly tired. Not tired like one asleep, tired of people thinking they can treat others like less." Micah nodded slowly, as if that made sense in a way no classroom had ever taught him. "But what if he hurt you?" he asked. Gloria paused before answering. then somebody else would have stood up just like they did today. Micah's mother's eyes glistened with tears. She mouthed a quiet thank you. Gloria simply smiled back. The ride continued. They passed a mural painted across the side of a community center. 4 figures standing tall. Martin Luther King Jr., Ruby Bridges, Cesar Chavez, and Rosa Parks. Gloria noticed it from the corner of her eye. She didn't react outwardly, but it lingered in her mind. Sylvia turned around. "Miss Gloria, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why didn't you yell at him?" Gloria breathed out slowly. Not out of frustration, not weariness, just fullness. "Because I've done enough yelling in my life," she said. "I've learned sometimes the strongest thing you can do is nothing. Let people trap themselves with their own words." Sylvia nodded. "You were never alone on that bus." "I know," Gloria replied. "That's what made the difference." From 2 rows back, a young man leaned into the aisle. "It's messed up we still deal with this in 2025. "It is messed up," Camille agreed. "But every time someone speaks up, even one voice, it shifts things little by little." Reuben, who hadn't spoken since the officers left, finally raised his voice just enough. "I've got 2 daughters. If they ever end up in a moment like this, I hope the people around them do what y'all did today." No one clapped. No one cheered. They just looked at one another. Strangers, now bound by something more real than routine. At the next stop, Sylvia gathered her things and stepped down. At the door, she looked back. "I've lived a long time," she said, "but today felt like a good one." Gloria gave her a small wave. The door closed. The bus moved on. Gloria turned to Camille. "Where you headed?" "Library. Gotta write a paper on generational trauma. Think I just found my opening paragraph." Gloria chuckled. "Write the truth, baby. That's all we've got left that can still move hearts." But Gloria still had one more stop before heading home. The sun was dipping low when she finally stepped off near 14th and Reynolds. The breeze had softened, and the golden light made the pavement glow, as if the world itself was offering quiet respect. She didn't go straight home. Instead, she turned left, passing the corner store where the owner still called her Miss G, though she hadn't been a regular in years. Her steps slowed, not from pain, but from thought. Her feet carried her, no directions needed. 3 blocks down, beside a fenced-in playground, stood the mural. A huge city piece painted in bold colors, visible from half a block away. At its center was Rosa Parks, hands folded, eyes forward, painted so vividly she looked alive. Gloria crossed the street and sat on the bench facing it. She didn't need to stare long. She'd been here before many times. This bench had once held her and her husband back when he was alive, when he told old army stories like they were fairy tales. Now held only her. She leaned back and looked at Rosa. "You'd think we'd be further by now," she murmured. "You sat so we could stand. And still, we're fighting for our seats." She pulled a folded envelope from her purse. Inside was a photo, her granddaughter holding baby Elijah. Gloria looked at it for a long while, then back at the mural. "I didn't move today," she said softly. "Not because I wanted trouble. Not out of pride. I just couldn't make myself shrink." A man pushing a stroller walked past, gave her a polite smile. Gloria nodded back. "Someone once told me you don't change hearts by shouting over people," she continued. "You change them by standing still, by showing them what dignity looks like when it won't bend." She tucked the photo away and looked at Rosa one last time. "You weren't alone back then, and I wasn't alone today. I guess that's something." She stood slowly, the weight of the day in her bones but not in her spirit. Across the street, kids played on the monkey bars. A little girl in a pink jacket pointed at the mural. "Who's that?" she asked her dad. He knelt. "That's Rosa Parks, baby. She helped change the world." The girl looked up. "Can I do that too?" Gloria smiled to herself and turned away, heading down the block toward home. And if you're watching this and felt something, anything, don't let it stop here. Speak up, show up, sit where you belong, and help others do the same. And if this story touched you, share it. Subscribe for more real stories that remind us how much strength lives in quiet resistance.